Hey everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to crochet Shadowfin the Shark. This tiny tide turner brings endless giggles and splashes to the deep blue sea. So Shadowfin can be made in sport, DK, or plush weight yarn by adjusting your hook size. Today I'll be crocheting with worsted weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook. If you haven't already, be sure to snag the matching greeting card to make an adorable and one-of-a-kind gift that your friends and family will love. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we are starting in on Shadowfin the Shark's tutorial, and we're going to begin with the head and body and this blue colored yarn. So the first thing we need to do is get a slip knot formed and then chain some stitches. So let's review how to tie a slip knot and how to make our first few chain stitches. Alright, so let's review how to tie a slip knot and how to form a chain stitch. So we're going to take our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration, so just double check you're using the correct color from your pattern. And we're going to reserve ourselves a little bit of a tail, just like we do with our magic ring. So I'm going to take maybe 5 or 6 inches or so of my working yarn here, make myself a little tail. And then we're going to take that tail and we're going to wrap it behind our working yarn. So we're sort of making like a lowercase letter B. So once we've got that wrapped around, we formed this loop here. We're going to kind of sandwich the working yarn with the tail. So bring it back around and kind of cross it over that loop. Sort of like a pretzel twist. Then when we've done that, what we need to do is draw this twist that we've just done, that strand, through this loop without pulling the tail all the way through, because that would just tie a knot. So I take my hook hand, which is my right hand, and I grab what I've laid over that loop and pull it. And then with my other hand, I grab my working yarn and then pull the loop through. And the reason I form my slip knots this way is because they tighten when you pull on the tail, but not when you pull on the working yarn. It won't tighten while you're trying to add stitches to it. So once you've got that slip knot formed, you're going to take your hook and slip it inside of the slip knot, and then pull the tail to tighten it into a loop down onto your hook. Then you're ready to begin tensioning by laying the working yarn over your yarn index finger. So for me, that's my left index finger. And then wrapping the rest of your fingers around our working yarn. And then I like to hold on to the slip knot itself with my middle and thumb on my yarn hand. And then we're ready to form a chain. So to chain, we'll take our hook and we're going to yarn over, meaning we're going to put the yarn over our hook, and then draw the working yarn through the slip knot we tied, and then pull up to form a nice tall loop. So that's our first chain. To continue chaining, we're going to just keep yarning over and drawing a nice tall loop through each time. One final thing though, the loop on your hook, as I'm sure I may have mentioned in the video before, that doesn't count as a stitch. This is sort of like a stitch in progress. So right now I have 2 chain stitches formed. I'll yarn over and draw another stitch through. That'll be 3, 4. And as you add chain stitches, I tend to move my middle and my thumb up closer to my hook to help me sort of tension my yarn a little easier. So as I chain, I just keep shifting my hand down the stitches that I've just created. Alright, so that's how you tie a slip knot and chain. Alright, so now that we have reviewed how to tie a slip knot and how to chain, we're ready to start in on round 1, where we're going to chain 13 stitches. Alright, so now that we have 13 chain stitches, we're ready to go ahead and, in the second chain from our hook, place our first single crochet stitch. So we don't count the loop here on our hook. So counting 1, 2, we're going to take our crochet hook and slip through the center of that stitch and then yarn under, so putting the yarn underneath our crochet hook, and then use our hook to draw that yarn through that chain stitch and up into a nice tall loop on our crochet hook. Then we'll yarn over, so put the yarn over our crochet hook and draw that through the 2 loops left to form our first single crochet stitch. We're also going to want to mark the stitch because it's the first stitch of a round. So I'm going to take my stitch marker and slip the little end of it underneath both sides of that stitch and then lock it in place. So there's that first single crochet stitch, the first of 11, so we need to continue adding single crochet stitches to each of these chains. So we'll take our hook and again slip in the center of that stitch, yarn under, and draw up a nice tall loop on our hook, then yarn over and draw through both. So there's my second single crochet stitch. There's my third. I'm just going to continue adding single crochet stitches until I have 11 total, which should take me to the last stitch of this chain. Alright, so I have all 11 of my single crochet stitches here, and I can double check by turning my work kind of on the side and starting with the one that we marked, counting these little V shapes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we don't count the loop on our crochet hook. That's sort of like a stitch in the works. Alright, so there are those 11 single crochet stitches. And then in the slip knot that we tied, we're going to add 3 single crochet stitches. So we'll go through that slip knot, yarn under and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. So there's the first. There's my second, and 1 more single crochet stitch. There's my third. And then I'm going to take the tail from the slip knot and pull it tight to tighten it. And you can see those 3 stitches are going to kind of help us swing around so that we can work up the other side of the chain. So working up the other side of the chain, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 10 chain stitches on this side. And we're going to work the tail in from our slip knot start. So we're not going to work another stitch into that last stitch that we worked into. We're going to go to the next chain stitch on this side, push through, and then lay that tail from our slip knot over our crochet hook, and then make our single crochet stitch as normal. So there's 1. I'll go through the next chain stitch, lay that tail over again. There's my second single crochet stitch. Alright, so there's that 10th single crochet stitch, and we have 1 chain left, and inside that chain we're going to add an increase. So like this slip knot down at the bottom where we put 3 single crochet stitches inside, an increase is a short way of writing put 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch from the previous round. So into this last chain we're going to place 2 single crochet stitches. So here's my first, and I'll go through that same chain again and place a second. And that takes us all the way back to our stitch marker, which is great because round 2, our first stitch is in the marked stitch that we had from round 1. So let's go ahead and take that stitch marker out, and in that stitch we're going to place another increase. So we just did our first one here. We'll go through both sides of that stitch that we had marked, yarn under, draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through both. And then before we finish that increase, let's mark that stitch because it's the first of the round. And then we'll wrap up our increase by working through that same stitch a second time, placing a second single crochet stitch inside. Alright, and then in the next 10 stitches, we're going to put one single crochet stitch. So we're working through both sides of our stitch, adding just one single crochet stitch to each. Alright, so there are those 10 single crochet stitches. Then we have a parentheses here in our instructions. So what that means is that everything inside we need to do in the order it appears, the amount of times indicated outside. So this parentheses pattern, we're going to put one increase in the next stitch, then one single crochet stitch, and then repeat that pattern a second time, so one increase, one single crochet stitch. So let's give that a try. Here's our first increase, and then in the next stitch, one single crochet stitch. And we'll do that a second time, so one increase, and then one single crochet stitch. So there's that parentheses pattern twice, and it kind of helped us swing around the other side of this really long oval shape we've got here. And we're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 9 stitches. Alright, so there are those 9 single crochet stitches, then one increase in the next stitch, and then one single crochet stitch to wrap up this round. Alright, that's round 2 done. Round 3, we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat, starting with one single crochet stitch, and we're going to mark that, followed by one increase, and we'll repeat that a second time, so one single crochet stitch, one increase, then we need to put one single crochet stitch in the next 8 stitches, alright, there are those 8 single crochet stitches, then another parentheses pattern, one increase, followed by one single crochet stitch, and we'll repeat that 2 more times. So here's my second increase, and my third repetition. Alright, so there's that parentheses pattern, which kind of swings us around. Then one single crochet stitch in the next 10 stitches of the round. Alright, and then one increase, followed by one single crochet stitch. And that's round 3 done. So for round 4, we're starting with another parentheses pattern. So one single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. So here's my first, and then I'll put the second in the next stitch. So there's 2 single crochet stitches, followed by an increase. And we'll repeat that a second time, so 1, 2 single crochet stitches, increase, then one single crochet stitch in the next 9 stitches of the round. There are those 9 single crochet stitches, then another parentheses pattern, one increase, followed by 2 single crochet stitches, and we're going to repeat that 2 more times for a total of 3. So one increase, 2 single crochet stitches, one last time, alright, and then we're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 9 stitches of the round. Alright, there are those 9 single crochet stitches, then 1 increase, followed by 2 single crochet stitches. Alright, and that is round 4 done. So for the rest of this pattern here on the body, we're going to be working with blue and white yarn, and we're going to be using a special technique to color work this so that the white section of the body doesn't get skewed and stays the shape that it needs to stay. So I'll walk you through how to do round 5 with this new color change. So then round 6, 7, and 8 are going to be worked exactly like this round 5. So we're going to start by taking your stitch marker out and then placing 1 single crochet stitch in blue in the next 4 stitches, pausing on that last stitch. So here's our first, second, third, and then we're going to switch colors here on this last stitch to white. So we're going to go through this 4th stitch, yarn under, and draw up a loop. But then we're going to pull through these last 2 loops of our single crochet stitch in our new color, which is white. So we're going to take the blue and we're going to drop it to the back of our work and then get our white color ready to go. So we're going to take this white and we'll kind of pinch it into a little loop. So it's got a tail here, and then put that loop on our crochet hook and pull it through those 2 loops left so that the loop coming out of the last stitch is now white. Then we're going to take the blue and the white tail behind us, behind our work as we continue our next 15 stitches, but we're also going to be working only in the front loops of these 15 stitches across the body here. So far we've been working in both the front and the back loop. I'm going to set my work down. You don't need to. I just want to show the difference between these 2 loops here with my tapestry needle. So we've been working in both the front and the back loop. You can see I've got them here on this green tapestry needle. When we're working in this new color, we only want to work in the front loop, which is this loop right here. That's going to keep our color change from skewing. So we only need to work in the front loop when we're working with this white color here on the underside of the body. So we're going to take our white and begin tensioning, and then lay the white and the blue behind our work as we work this first color change. Then we're going to snag just the front loop here of the next stitch, and then lay the blue and the white over our hook, and then make a single crochet stitch as normal with our new white color. So there's that first white single crochet stitch. I'll make the next one in the front loop only again. And we're going to continue adding front loop only white single crochet stitches for 15 stitches total. I also find if I lay these tails behind my work and kind of hold them with my yarn hand, I can grab the front loop and those tails at the same time, so I don't have to keep laying them over my hook. So you can watch as I do this again. Grab the front loop and those tails in kind of like one deft motion. It takes a little practice. Alright, so here's this 15th white single crochet stitch, and I'm going to make it again in the front loop and then take those tails with me as well, but we're going to be switching back to blue. So we'll start this stitch with white, Then we're going to take that white and drop it to the back of our work. Grab our blue and pull through those 2 loops left on our hook with blue. Then we can trim that white tail that we've been taking with us behind our work at this point. We've woven it in for all 15 of those stitches. So give it a trim. And then we're going to just leave the white on the back side of our work as we add 1 single crochet stitch in blue to the next 23 stitches. So we don't need to work in the front loop only anymore. We can go ahead and go back to working in both the front and the back loop. So just leave your white here. And we're going to add 1 single crochet stitch to the remaining 23 stitches in blue. Okay, so that wraps up round 5. So like I mentioned, round 6, 7, and 8 are all worked the same way, but we have to do our first float with our color. So let me walk you through round 6 as well. So again, starting with 4 blue single crochet stitches here. So we'll take our stitch marker out, add that first single crochet stitch, so there's my first, second, third, and then again on this 4th stitch we need to switch back to white, but we left our white all the way over here on the other side of this stretch of white stitches. So we're going to have to create a loose float and then work over that float for this 15 stitch run in white. So we'll start by making the first half of this single crochet stitch in blue. Then we're going to take the blue and drop it to the back of our work, and then stretch the white over from the side that we left it on here and wrap it around our hook, and then draw that through. But before we begin working, we want to make sure that the float that we've left at the back of our work is loose. So I'm going to take this float and I'm going to pull on it so that it sits really loosely behind, because we're going to be working over this float as we add the next batch of front loop only single crochet stitches. So I'll take this blue and give it a really tight tug to kind of tighten it down. Then I'm going to tighten the white loop on my hook by pulling my working yarn in white, being careful not to tighten that float that we've made nice and loose here on the back side. And then as we do our next batch of front loop only single crochet stitches, we're going to work this tail in as we go too. So we'll grab the front loop of the first stitch here and grab that float that we've made and make a single crochet stitch as normal, taking that float with us as well. So go through my next, grab that float, create another single crochet stitch. I'm just going to continue working that float in as I go. So working in only the front loops, taking my float with me. Alright, so I've reached my last white single crochet stitch, and if you're like me, you've used up pretty much all of the float that you stretched over, but that's okay. This last one, we're going to be pulling through with this blue yarn, so we're going to catch just the front loop here of this last white single crochet stitch. Start and then leave the 2 loops in white on our hook, and then to make sure our yarn doesn't get tangled, we're going to take this float and we're going to kind of loop it over our hook and send it to the back, this direction, because if we just lay it in the back here, when we go to grab our blue, it's going to twist that white in and twist our yarns together. So we're going to just take the white and we're going to pass it around the back of our crochet hook and then lay it to the back of our work this direction. Then from here, we're ready to make another really long float in blue. So go ahead, grab the blue and pull through those last two loops. And then we're going to grab that blue float that we've created. You can see it's really tight. We want it to kind of stretch around this side of the body. So we're going to pull that float till it's nice and loose. And we've got a lot of float to work with. And then from here, we don't need to work in the front and the front loop only. We can work in both. And we're going to work the float that we've created in as well. So we'll go through the front and back loop and lay that float over our hook and continue adding single crochet stitches. So 23 in blue, taking that float with us as we work. Alright, so that is round 6 done. I'm also going to go ahead and trim. You can see the tail that we wove in from our slip knot start likes to get itself tangled underneath these floats. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a trim too, so as not to confuse. So that's round 6 done. Round 7 and 8 are done the exact same way. So again, we're going to just continue crocheting over that blue float for 4 single crochet stitches. And that last stitch, the float's basically worked in. So we're going to make most of a single crochet stitch here in blue, lay the blue to the back of our work, and then float that white over and draw through. Tighten that blue down, and then pull the white so you have a nice loose float at the back of your work. So this is round 7, which is work just like round 5 and round 6. Working in the front loops only, grabbing our float. So I will see you back here whenever I have finished the last single crochet stitch of round 8, and we are ready to move on in our pattern together to round 9. Alright, so I've just made the last single crochet stitch here of round 8, and I'm ready to move on to round 9. You can see I've got some more of my blue float to work in. So the first stitch we need to make here in round 9 is a decrease. So we're going to take our stitch marker out. And then to do this decrease, remember still working over the blue of our float, we're going to go through both the next stitch and of course around the float, yarn under and draw up a loop. And we're going to repeat that same thing in the stitch right after. So we're going to go through, yarn under and draw up a loop. Then yarn over and draw through all 3 of those loops to decrease. And then mark that stitch that we've just created, since that decrease is the first stitch of our round. And then we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in blue in the next 2 stitches. So here's my first. And then in the second one, we're going to be switching to white. So we'll go through that last blue stitch before the white patch. Yarn under, drop a loop. Drop the blue to the back of our work. Stretch the white over. Loosen that white float. Tighten the blue down. And then 1 single crochet stitch in white in the next front loops for 15 stitches, of course working that float in as we go. Alright, here's that last white in the front loop. So we're going to take our yarn and bring it around our hook and drop it to the back. And then stretch the blue over, pull through those last 2 loops, loosen that blue float, tighten the white down. Then we've got 1 single crochet stitch in blue for the next 2 stitches. Then 1 decrease. And then 1 single crochet stitch in blue for the next 19 stitches. Alright, so that's round 9 done. We're ready for round 10. We'll take that stitch marker out, work 1 single crochet stitch in blue for the next 3 stitches. So here's that 3rd stitch. And I'm gonna switch over to the white, so set the blue to the back. Stretch my white over. Loosen that white float, tighten the blue down, and then work across 15 single crochet stitches here in the front loop with that float in white. Alright, so there's that 15th stitch. I'm going to take my yarn and go around the back side of my hook and send the white to the back. And then draw through with the blue. Loosen the blue into a nice loose float here on the back side. And then tighten that white down. And I'll put 1 single crochet stitch in blue for the next 22 stitches. Alright, so that's round 10 done. Round 11 we're going to begin with 1 decrease in blue. Mark that decrease. And then 1 single crochet stitch in blue. Switching to white in the last 2 loops. So stretch the white over. Make a nice loose float. Tighten the blue down. Then we'll make 2 white single crochet stitches, again in the front loops for the white. Then 1 decrease, and we're going to be in the front loops for this decrease. So we'll go to the next front loop, drop a loop, go to the next front loop, drop a loop, and then draw through all 3. Then 7 front loops here. Then 1 decrease again. And then 2 white single crochet stitches with this last one switching back to blue. So rotate the white tail around, Stretch the blue tail over and draw through. Then loosen that float in the back. Tighten down the white. Then we've got one single crochet stitch here in blue, followed by one decrease, and then 19 single crochet stitches in blue. Alright, that's round 11 done, so rounds 12 through 15 are the same. Let's do round 12 together, and then you can repeat 13, 14, 15, and we'll come back together for round 16 and its new instructions. So starting in on round 12, we'll make 2 blue single crochet stitches. With that second one, dropping the blue to the back, floating the white across. Okay, then making 13 white single crochet stitches across the front here. There's my last white single crochet stitch, so rotating that white around my hook, floating the blue, loosening the blue float so that it stretches around the blue portion of the body. Then tightening that white down. Then we've got 21 blue single crochet stitches to make. Alright, that's the end of round 12, so round 13, 14, 15 are all worked the same way. So I'll see you back here whenever I've finished round 15 and we're ready to move on together to round 16. Alright, so I just finished the last single crochet stitch of round 15 and I'm ready for round 16, starting with 2 blue single crochet stitches. And then switching to white. And then making 1 single crochet stitch here in white in the front loop only. Then 1 decrease. Then 7 single crochet stitches. Then 1 decrease. And then 1 final single crochet stitch in white. Switching to blue, so we'll pass our white around. And then 21 stitches here in blue until the end of this round. Alright, that's round 16 done. Round 17, starting with 2 blue single crochet stitches. And then switching to white on the second one here. Then 11 white single crochet stitches. Right, here's that last white single crochet stitch. We'll throw the white behind our hook. And stretch the blue across. Loosen the float. And then we've got 21 stitches here in blue. Alright, that's round 17 done. So for round 18, starting again with another 2 blue single crochet stitches. And then pulling through that last blue single crochet stitch with our white. Loosening that float, tightening the blue down and the white down. Then we've got 1 single crochet stitch here in white. Then 1 decrease. Then 5 single crochet stitches. Then 1 decrease. Then 1 last single crochet stitch here in white, switching to blue, then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches in blue, then 1 decrease in blue, then 15 single crochet stitches, and then 1 decrease here, so those last 2 stitches of our round will decrease together. And that's round 18 done, so rounds 19 through 22 are going to be worked the same way, so I'll work you through round 19. Starting off with 2 blue single crochet stitches, then pulling through that last blue single crochet stitch here with white. Then working the next 9 stitches in white, Alright, so with that last stitch we're going to pull through with blue, so we'll take our white around our hook, drop to the back, grab our blue, loosen the float, and then 1 single crochet stitch in blue in the next 19 stitches. Alright, that takes me to the end of round 19, so round 20, 21, and 22 are all worked that same way. So I'll see you back here whenever I'm ready for round 23. Alright, so I just finished up round 22, moving on to round 23, starting with another 2 blue single crochet stitches. And then switching over to white. Alright, so we're making 1 single crochet stitch here in white, then 1 decrease, then 3 single crochet stitches in white, followed by 1 more decrease, then 1 last single crochet stitch in white, pulling through that last one with blue, placing 1 single crochet stitch in blue in the next 2 stitches, then 1 decrease, then we've got a parentheses pattern here to repeat, so 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches, followed by a decrease. And we're going to repeat that 2 more times for a total of 3. So 3 single crochet stitches, decrease, alright, that's round 23 done. Round 24 through 27, again, we're going to be repeating the same thing. So let's do round 24 together. 2 blue single crochet stitches to start with. Then switching to white. Seven white single crochet stitches. Then pulling through that last white single crochet stitch with blue, loosening that blue float, then continuing around in the remaining 15 stitches of the round with blue. Alright, that's round 24 done, so rounds 25, 26, and 27 are made the same way. I'll see you back here whenever I have finished round 27. We're ready to add some stuffing to the inside of the body. Alright, so I just finished round 27, and I'm going to add some stuffing to the inside of the body here. So I'm going to take this last stitch and pull it up long, and then take my hook out. And then I'm going to add some stuffing to the inside, being careful not to accidentally stuff any of the tails I'm still working with on the inside too. Alright, so I have the inside of the body stuffed up to this point, so I'm going to go ahead and put my hook back through and tighten that loop down. I'm ready for round 28. Starting with 2 blue single crochet stitches. And in that second blue single crochet stitch, you're going to pull through with white. Loosen the float here on the back side of our work. Then we'll make one decrease here in white. Then 2 single crochet stitches in white. Then 1 decrease. And then 1 single crochet stitch, but pulling through with the blue. And rather than stretching the blue float all the way around this side of the body, I'm simply going to stretch it as a loose float over the patch of white here at the front. So I'm going to pull through here, then loosen this float up a little bit and let it just sit behind the white here at the front of the body. Okay, so then I'm ready to continue working around. I'll put 1 single crochet stitch in blue in the next stitch, then 1 decrease, then a parentheses pattern, so 2 single crochet stitches in blue, and a decrease. I'll repeat that another 2 times for a total of 3 repetitions. Alright, that's round 28, so rounds 29 through 32, we're going to work the same pattern, so I'll walk you through round 29, starting off with 2 blue single crochet stitches. Then switching over to white. We'll make 5 white single crochet stitches in the front loops, working over that float. Then in that last white single crochet stitch, we'll pull through with blue, stretching the float behind that white that we just worked, so not all the way around, just like we did last round. And then putting 1 single crochet stitch in blue in the 11 remaining stitches of this round. Alright, so that's round 29 done, so we'll work rounds 30 through 32 the same way. Alright, so I just finished round 32 and we're officially done with our white yarn, so let's go ahead and trim it, leaving a little bit of a tail that we're going to work in. And we're ready to start in here on round 33. We'll begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then decreasing. And we don't need to work in the front loops here anymore of these white stitches, just work through both. And we're going to repeat that pattern until we get to this white tail that we left behind, and then we're going to work it in. So 1 single crochet stitch, decrease, 1 single crochet stitch, and then for this decrease I'm going to take this tail behind and work it in. I'll do that again, working that tail in, 1 single crochet, 1 decrease. I'll take the rest of that tail and I'm going to stuff it to the inside of the body here. I worked it in far enough. And continue with that pattern, 1 single crochet stitch, decrease, Alright, now that I've done that, I'm ready to add a little bit more stuffing to the inside of the body, so I'm going to pull this last stitch up long, take my hook out, and go ahead and add some more stuffing to the inside. Alright, so that wraps up the stuffing, and I'm ready to go ahead and make my last round here. So I'll draw that loop back down. So for round 34, I'm going to put one single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round. And then decrease. I'll repeat that 3 more times. One single crochet stitch, decrease. Alright, and I'm ready to fasten off, so I'm going to leave a tail to sew with. Maybe 6-8 inches or so of this blue. And then in that stitch here, where I've got my stitch marker, I'm going to make a slip stitch. So I'll go through that stitch, I'll yarn over, draw it through the stitch, and then draw that loop I just created through the only other loop left on my hook to make my slip stitch. And then I'm going to pull that slip stitch long until the tail I cut passes through it as well, and then tighten it down. And then I'm going to use that tail I've cut to sew closed this last round. So I'll thread the tail through the eye of my yarn needle. And then I'm going to sew through each of the 8 front loops left on this last round. I'll pull this last stitch that I've been sewing tight to close that round off, and then loop my tail over the surface of my work here. And then I'm going to grab some of the fabric of that last front loop and then sew up through that loop that I've created and pull, which will tie a knot, and then weave this tail into the body. Once I've done that, I can unthread my yarn needle and trim any excess tail that didn't get woven in. And that wraps up the body. Alright, so next up we are starting with the large fin. Again, with this blue colored yarn, we're going to begin by forming a magic ring. Alright, so let's review how to form a magic ring. So we're going to start by taking a little length of our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration. Make sure you're using the correct color for the pattern that you are following along with. So I'm going to take this white, and I'm going to reserve myself a little bit of a tail. So I'm going to take the end of that yarn, and I'm going to stretch it so I've got about 5 inches or so of a tail. And the tail is going to be the end that is not attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got about 5 inches or so reserved of that tail, we're going to take our yarn hand. For me, that's my left hand, but if you're a left-handed crocheter, this might be your right hand. But we're going to take our yarn hand and make a bit of a finger guns here. So my index and my middle finger, I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to be looking at the inside of them. Then I'm going to take that tail that I've reserved, that 5 inches, and I'm going to lay it so that it's over the lower digit on my index and my middle. And then I'll take my thumb and I'm going to press the yarn to those 2 fingers. Then I'm going to take my hook hand, which is for me my right hand, but could be your left hand, and I'm going to grab the working yarn. Once I've got that grabbed, I'll take it and I'm going to wrap it around the back side of my index and my middle finger so that it's sort of close to that top digit. I'll flip my hand over so you can see. So I want it to be close to my top digit, so you can see it's closer to the 2 tops of my fingers here. So we're going to wrap that around, and then once we've got it around the top digit of those 2 fingers, we're going to bring it so that it goes behind our thumb again. So I use my thumb and I pinch that second wrap in place. Then we're going to keep wrapping, this time going around the lower digit on our 2 fingers. So I'll flip my hand over so you can see these 2 wraps here. This is that one I just made, going around that lower digit. So we'll wrap around that lower digit, and then we're going to take our working yarn and one more time snug it behind our thumb, and then just pull it out of our way. So once we've done that, we should have 2 wraps and this sort of X shape on the insides of our hands. So once we have all of the yarn wrapped around our yarn hand here, we're ready to take our crochet hook in our hook hand, and we're going to flip our yarn hand over so that we're looking at the back side of our fingers. So we should have two wraps, one around the top digit, one around the lower digit on our yarn hand. We're going to take our hook and slip it underneath that top wrap, and then use the hook part to snag that lower wrap and bring it underneath the top wrap. Then we're going to take both of our hands and we're going to flip them over so that we're looking at the inside and away from our body. So I'm flipping out and away from my body. And then I'm going to bring my two hands together, so my yarn hand and my hook hand. I'm going to bring them so the index finger here on my hook hand can touch the back side of my yarn hand. Then using the thumb and index finger of my hook hand, I'm going to grab both the wrap on my hook and the wrap still on my fingers right where they meet. So I'm going to kind of snag the two of them together right there. Once I've got those pinched between my thumb and index finger on my hook hand, I can let go with my thumb and then gently slide those wraps off of my index and middle finger. So now that I've done that, let's locate both the tail, that's the end that's no longer attached to our ball of yarn, so it's got this blunt cut end on it. And we're going to kind of pull that over into the 12 o'clock position, so kind of up and away. And then let's locate the working yarn. That's the stuff still attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got those two identified, we're going to take the working yarn and begin tensioning it. So to do that, we'll take our index finger on our yarn hand. That for me is my left hand. Could be your right hand for you if you're a left-handed crocheter. And we're going to slip the working yarn over the top of our index finger. Then we'll take our middle, ring, and pinky finger on our yarn hand, and we're going to wrap those around that working yarn. Once you've done that, we also need to sandwich this working yarn in between our magic ring and our tail. So to do that, I like to take my middle finger and thumb on my yarn hand, and I'm going to grab that tail with my middle finger here. And then with my thumb, I want to grab the ring. So we don't want to grab our working yarn, which is kind of going in through that ring. We want to just get the bottom end of the ring here. And once you've got those two, we're going to kind of pinch them together. And you can see that sandwiches our working yarn in between the two of them. Once we've got those grabbed with our yarn hand, we can let go with our index and thumb on our hook hand. And the ring here that's on our hook is really loose. We'll tighten that by pulling our index finger up and away. You can see how that tightens that yarn. And then once we've done that, we're ready to yarn over and draw through the loop on our hook. So we'll take our hook, put the yarn over our hook, so I kind of just swing around the back side there and grab it. And we're going to pull that working yarn directly through the loop on our hook. Once we've done that, you can let go. It's not going to come undone. It won't come untied, which is very comforting because we've spent all this time creating it. The last thing we need to do before we're ready to begin is we're going to take the tail, and you can see it's threaded through our magic ring. We're going to take that tail and we're going to pull it out from the center of that ring. And from here, we're ready to begin working in the magic ring. We also need to work over the tail as well. So we'll take that ring and we'll take the tail and we're going to set them together so that we are working over both of these strands, the ring and the tail. All right, you are ready to go ahead and continue on in your pattern. All right, so with that magic ring formed, we're ready to go ahead and start in on round 1, and we're going to place 6 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Once you have all 6 stitches placed inside of your magic ring, you can pull the tail to close off round 1. which sets us up for round 2, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 6 stitches we created in round 1. Alright, so that's round 2 done for me. I'm going to pull the magic ringtail tightly one last time, then flip my work over and give that magic ringtail a trim, and then continue on to round 3, where I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. Then I'll put 1 increase in the next 2 stitches. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the last 2 stitches. Which wraps up round 3. Round 4, I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 8 stitches I created from round 3. Okay, that's round 4 done for me. Round 5, I'm going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. Alright, then I'm going to put 1 increase in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 3 stitches of the round. Which wraps up round 5. Round 6, I'm going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 increases. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. Which wraps up round 6. Moving on to round 7, we'll put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 increases. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 5 stitches of the round. Which wraps up round 7 and sets us up for round 8, where we'll put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches of the round. And then 2 increases. And then 6 single crochet stitches, 1 in each of the 6 remaining stitches of the round. And round 9, which is our last round, 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 16 stitches we made from round 8. Okay, that's round 9 done, which means we're ready to fasten off. I'll take my stitch marker out, and then I'm going to make a slip stitch in the stitch it was just in. So I'm going to go through, yarn under, draw up a loop, and then draw that loop through the only other loop on my crochet hook. And then I need to cut a long tail that I'm going to use to sew the fin closed and also to the body. So I'll reserve myself 12 to 14 inches of yarn, and then snip. Then I'm going to pull that last slip stitch on my hook really long until the tail I cut passes through it as well. And then tighten that slip stitch down by pulling on that tail until it forms a knot. And then I'm gonna make it so that the fin has that slip stitch we made over here on the right hand side. I'll just pinch that closed. And we're not gonna stuff the fin either. So we're gonna take this tail that we've cut and thread it through the eye of our tapestry needle. And then we're going to use this tail to sew through both layers of fabric, closing up the fin. So I'm going to grab some of the stitches here on the underside and then match them to some of them on the other side of fabric. Pull that tail through. I'm going to repeat that again, going from the underside, grabbing something across the way, and whip stitching the opening here closed. Alright, so I have the large fin sewn closed and I'm ready to go ahead and attach it onto the body. So it makes this nice kind of curved shape. This is going to be the side that goes towards the narrower end of the body or the tail. So go ahead and grab our body here. And it gets attached to the top of the body where the blue is around round 15 and in between rounds 15 and round 22. So counting our way back from the first round, which is this one here that we made at the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The fins are going to sit between rounds 15 and 22 here on the top of the body. And to attach, we're going to take the tail that is still threaded here in our tapestry needle, sew through some of the fabric of the body, and then back through the layers of the fin that we've sewn together. And we're just going to keep sewing until this fin is attached all the way across the bottom where it sits along the body. Alright, so once the fin is attached all the way along the bottom and is secured to the body, we can go ahead and tie a surface knot, sort of like we did when we closed off the bottom of the body, by looping our tail over the surface of our work, sewing through a stitch of the fabric of our work, and then up through that loop. And then by pulling, that's going to wrap itself around to tie a knot. And then we can weave that tail in by sending it into the body and out through a stitch. And from there we can unthread our tapestry needle and trim close to the fabric of the body to weave the excess in, which gets the large fin attached. So let's move on to the next part of the pattern. Next up is the smaller of the two fins that go on the top of the body, and we're going to begin again with this blue colored yarn and with another magic ring. Alright, now that I have that magic ring formed, I'm ready for round 1, which is to put 6 single crochet stitches inside. Alright, now I've got all 6 single crochet stitches inside of that magic ring. I'm going to pull the tail to close the magic ring off. And I'm ready for round 2, where I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of those 6 stitches we made from round 1. Alright, so there are those 6 single crochet stitches for round 2. I'm going to pull that magic ring tail tight one last time, flip my work over, and give it a trim. And that sets me up for round 3, where I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 increases. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 2 stitches of round 3. Round 4, we're going to begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 more increases. and then wrapping up with 1 single crochet stitch in the 3 remaining stitches from the previous round. Alright, that sets us up for round 5, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. Followed by 2 increases, and then wrapping up with 1 more single crochet stitch in the 4 remaining stitches of the round. And we're ready for round 6, which is the last round of the smaller fin. 5 single crochet stitches, 1 into the first 5 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 increases, and then wrapping up with 1 single crochet stitch in the 5 remaining stitches of round 6. Alright, and that is the small fin done, so let's fasten off. We'll take our stitch marker out and make another slip stitch where it just was, just like we did with the larger of the 2 fins. Cut another long tail, 12 to 14 inches or so ought to do it, and trim. And then pull that last slip stitch nice and long until it passes through, and tighten it down. And just like with the larger of the 2 fins, we're going to fold this fin in half. And I'm going to make sure that the slip knot and the tail that I've left behind is over here on the right hand side. Thread my tapestry needle with the tail left behind, and then use that tail to sew through both layers of fabric, just like we did with the larger fin. Alright, with that fin sewn closed at the bottom, we're ready to go ahead and get it attached to the body, and it's going to attach the same direction that our larger one did. This sort of rounded shape is going to be facing towards the tail. So we'll grab our body, and it's going to go about 1, maybe 2 stitches, rows behind where the larger fin went. So I'm going to position it so it's in line with that larger fin, and attach it the exact same way I attached the larger fin to the body, sewing through some of the fabric of the body and then through both layers of the fin, and working my way across the bottom of the fin where it meets the body until it is fully attached. Alright, with the smaller fin now attached to the body, I'm ready to fasten off. I'll do that the same way I did with the first fin. We'll tie another surface knot here, grab some of the fabric of the body, and then sew up through that loop we formed, which ties a knot, and then weave the tail into the body and out through a stitch. Then you can unthread your tapestry needle, and using your scissors, cut that tail so that it hides inside the body. And that is the smaller fin made and attached. Let's move on in our pattern. Alright, so next up are the side fins. We need to make 2 of these, so I'll walk you through how to make the first. Then you need to come back, make a second, and we can get them attached to the body. So we're going to begin again with this blue colored yarn and by forming another magic ring. Once you get that magic ring formed, ready for round 1, which is to put 6 single crochet stitches inside. Once you have all 6 single crochet stitches, you can pull that tail and begin round 2, which is just to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 6 we made from round 1. Alright, so there's that last single crochet stitch for round 2. I'm going to pull the magic ring tail tightly, flip my work over, and trim that magic ring tail. Keep it out of my way. And we're ready for round 3, where we're going to begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. followed by 2 increases. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 2 stitches of the round. Wraps up round 3. Round 4 we'll put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 more increases. And then wrapping up with 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 3 stitches of the round. Alright, that's round 4. Round 5, we've got 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches. Followed by 2 increases. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. So there's round 5, and for round 6, which is the last round of the side fin, 1 single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches of the round. Followed by 2 increases. And then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 5 stitches of the round. Alright, that's that last single crochet stitch of round 6, and the last one that we need to make for the side fin. So we'll take that stitch marker out, slip stitch in the stitch it was just in, and then cut another long tail to sew with 12 to 14 inches or so. Pull that last slip stitch until our tail passes through, and then tighten it down. Just like with the taller and smaller fins from the top, we're going to fold this one in half and sew along the bottom here. So we'll thread that tail through the eye of our tapestry needle, and then sew along the bottom, whip stitching the 2 layers of the fin together. Alright, so there's the fin whip stitched closed. Let's make one more and then get them attached to the body. Alright, so I have both fins made, and I've already attached one of them here to the side of the body. So it's going to attach where the blue and the white meet, and then even with the taller of the 2 fins. Also, we want this rounded edge to be facing towards the back of the body where the tail is going to be. So we'll go ahead and grab our fin, position it so it's even on the side of the body where the white and the blue meet, and then also is even with this taller of the 2 fins. And we'll sew it on by whip stitching through the body and through some of the fabric of the fin until we've got it attached all the way along the bottom here. Once you've got your fin attached, we're going to fasten off the same way we did with the upper fins here. We'll tie another surface knot, and then weave that tail in by sewing it through the fabric of the body and out through a random stitch. Unthread our tapestry needle and trim that tail so the excess stays inside. Alright, so I've got both of my fins attached. Let's go ahead and move on to the next part of the pattern. Alright, so next up are the eyes. We need to make 2 of them, so I'll walk you through how to make the first, and then you'll have to come back and make the second. Starting with this black colored yarn, we're going to form another magic ring. Alright, with that magic ring formed, we're ready for round 1, which is to put 5 single crochet stitches inside of the magic ring. Alright, so there are those 5 single crochet stitches. I'm going to pull the tail of the magic ring to close off this round. And then we need to switch colors to white. So I'm going to cut a short tail here with the black yarn. And then we're going to go through the back loop only of that first single crochet stitch that we made. And we're going to pull through this back loop with our new color, which is this white. So we'll go ahead and fold a little loop, put it on our crochet hook, and pull through both of the loops here on our hook in white. Then we're ready to go ahead and tension that white, and we need to hold our black and white tails to the back of our work as we work all of the stitches here for round 2. So we're going to be in the back loops only. So here we need to actually chain 1 stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and draw 1 stitch up. And then here in this back loop that we sort of attached onto, we need to place 2 single crochet stitches. So I'm going to lay these 2 tails over, make my first single crochet stitch, add a second in that back loop, and then tighten those 2 tails and drop them to the back of my work. Then in the next back loop, we need to place a half double crochet increase. So we're going to take our hook and we're going to go clockwise around our yarn and wrap our yarn around. Then take our hook and go through that back loop. And we're going to yarn under and draw that yarn through the back loop, which gives us 3 loops here on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over and draw through all 3 of those loops to make our first half double crochet stitch. But we need to make a second one because it's a half double crochet increase. So again, wrapping our yarn around our hook, going through that same back loop, yarning under and drawing up the loop, then yarning over and drawing through both. So there's that first half double crochet increase. We'll make a second one in the next back loop. There's my second half double crochet increase. Then 2 more increases with single crochet stitches now. Which takes us all the way around 2, and we're going to slip stitch to that first single crochet stitch that we made. Which wraps up the eye. We can go ahead and cut the tail to sew with. Pull that last slip stitch till the tail works its way through and tighten down. And then these 3 tails here at the back, I'm going to trim short but not off. They're going to hide behind our eye when we attach it to the body. Alright, so there's 1 eye made. Let's make 1 more and then get them attached onto the body. Alright, so I have both eyes made, and I went ahead and attached one already to Shadowfin's body here. It goes along the front where that first row is. So here's that second eye. And you can either paste the eyes on or sew them on. I'm opting to sew my eyes on. So I'm going to thread the eye of my tapestry needle with this second eye here. And to sew the eye on, first I'm going to make sure all those tails are hidden behind it. Then I'm going to stick it here to the body, kind of on the corners of that first round that we made here. And I'll just sew through each of those stitches we made in white all the way around until the eye is attached on. Alright, so once you've sewn the eye on all the way, make sure your tail's coming up through some of the fabric of the eye itself so we can tie a surface knot. And then sew down underneath where that knot is and into the body to weave the knot and the tail in. Then unthread your tapestry needle and trim. And there are the eyes attached. So let's move on in our pattern. Alright, so the last thing that we need to make is the tail. So they're made the same way. The first one we're going to fasten off once we get to round 9. And the second one we're going to make all the way up to round 9 and then join the two pieces together. So I'll start off by making the first part of the tail here up to round 9. Then you're going to need to repeat up to round 9 and we'll come back together and join the two tails and continue working together. Alright, so again with this blue yarn, beginning with another magic ring. And we're ready for round 1, which is to put 4 single crochet stitches inside of our magic ring. Once you have all 4 single crochet stitches, you can pull the tail to tighten our magic ring, which sets us up for round 2. We're going to begin by increasing in this first stitch. So there's that increase, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 3 stitches of the round. And then we're going to keep repeating that, starting with another increase. And this time for round 3, putting 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 4 stitches of the round. So it's increase and then 1 single crochet stitch in each remaining stitch. Alright, so that's round 3 done. Here's round 4. Here's round 5, 1 increase, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 6 stitches. That's round 5. Round 6, again, 1 increase. Then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 7 stitches of the round. Here's round 7, 1 increase, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the 8 remaining stitches. Alright, round 8, 1 increase. Followed by 1 single crochet stitch in the 9 remaining stitches. And then round 9, 1 increase, followed by 1 single crochet stitch in the 10 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, so there's the first part of the tail done. So for this first one, we're going to go ahead and fasten off. So we'll slip stitch in that stitch our stitch marker was just in. Cut a short tail, we don't need very much. Pull that last slip stitch until the tail we cut passes through, and tighten. I'm going to tuck the magic ring tail to the inside and weave this tail in that we just cut so it stays out of our way when we make the second tail. So I'm just going to sew straight down into the fabric of the work. And then sew so that the tail is on the inside, and tuck that inside of the tail as well. Alright, so there is the first part of the tail done. So I will meet you back here whenever I have worked up to round 9 and we're ready to get these attached. Alright, so I've just worked my way around the second part of the tail and I've made my last single crochet stitch. So I'm going to take that first tail and I'm going to slip my hook through any one of the stitches on this side. And I'm going to slip stitch these two stitches together. So yarn under and draw through the stitch on the tail on this side and through the only other loop left on my hook. Then I'm going to put one single crochet stitch in the next stitch on this tail that I just attached onto. I'm going to mark that stitch as well. Then I'm going to continue adding single crochet stitches to this first part of the tail until I have all the way around added one to the 12 stitches of this side of the tail. So there are all 12 of those stitches. Now I'm going to jump across and work on the other side of the tail. So if you look, you can see our slip stitch here is coming out of this loop. So we want to go to the next stitch on our tail. So add our first single crochet stitch here, and then continue adding them into all 12 of the stitches. Alright, you can see that takes us all the way around. This is the slip stitch here that we joined the two tails together, so we are going to work right into this stitch marker for round 11, which is to put one single crochet stitch in each of the 24 stitches of the tops of both tails. So here's my first single crochet stitch. I'm just going to add one to each of those 24 stitches. Alright, that's round 11 done for me. Round 12, we're going to put one single crochet stitch in the next two stitches of the round. Followed by a decrease. Then we're going to repeat that parentheses pattern of one single crochet stitch in the next two, followed by a decrease. 6 times total, so 5 more times. Alright, that's round 12 done. Round 13, we're going to just put one single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. Alright, that's round 13 done, and round 14, which is the last round of our tail. One single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, followed by one decrease. And then we're going to repeat that sequence 6 times total, so 5 more times. One single crochet stitch, one decrease. Alright, that wraps up round 14 and the last round of the tail, so we're ready to fasten off. We'll go ahead and take that stitch marker out, and then slip stitch in the stitch it was just in. Then we need to cut a long tail to sew with. Pull that last slip stitch until the tail we cut passes through, and then tighten down. And then we are ready to go ahead and get the tail attached. So we're going to go ahead and kind of not stuff the tail, but open it up a little bit here. And we're going to be attaching this opening onto the back of the body so that the fin sort of sits kind of in line with the fins at the top of the body. So we'll thread that tail from the tail into the eye of our tapestry needle. And then we'll attach it by sort of opening the tail up and then sewing it on around the bottom of the body, or the back of the body. So we'll grab some of the fabric of the body and then through one of the stitches here on the last round of the tail, and just keep working our way around until the tail is fully attached. Alright, so once you have sewn all the way around and the tail is fully attached, we're going to go ahead and tie another surface knot to secure. And then weave that tail in so it goes into the body and out through a random stitch. Then unthread our tapestry needle and cut any excess. And that wraps up Shadowfin's tutorial.